The boy's rifle was the standard British infantry anti-tank weapon at the start of the Second World War. It is mainly remembered today for being only marginally effective against tanks in use at its introduction in 1937, heavy, and for kicking like a mule. Firing a .55-inch bullet, basically a necked-up 50 caliber Browning round with a hardened steel core, the boys served throughout World War II, even though it was recognised as obsolescent. Production only lasted 5 years, and it was replaced as soon as possible by new weapons, such as the Piat. These also didn't enjoy an entirely glowing reputation, but at least could penetrate the armour of their targets. But though the boys was not really effective in its designed role, its big round was certainly capable of making a mess of lighter targets, such as, for example, a Royal Navy motor torpedo boat. Skip forward to 1965. A cell of the IRA's Kilkenny Brigade are laying in wait. Their target? One of the Royal Navy's latest and most advanced vessels. A few years prior, British ships had started visiting ports in Southern Ireland. Notionally a sign of friendship, these visits sparked anger in Republicans who viewed them as a betrayal of the Irish Rebellion. With many members of the IRA Marxist and sympathetic towards the Soviet Union, there was also the fear that the visits may mark the start of Ireland's joining the NATO alliance. At the time, Irish Republicans were in between violent campaigns, instead exploring political options to achieving their goals of a united Ireland and a socialist state. But the repeated presence of British warships was considered intolerable. A member of the Kilkenny Brigade, Richard Beale, sought permission to take action against a Royal Navy vessel at the soonest opportunity. His brigade commander had been persuaded that such an action was justified, though the IRA High Command had decreed that no British personnel were to be killed south of the border. However, with the 50th anniversary of the Easter Uprising coming up the following year, the risk was thought acceptable for the sake of making the political point that the British military were not welcome in Southern Ireland. Initially, Beale was offered an American-made bazooka for the attack, but he declined because he had no experience of the weapon and had heard that the CIA had doctored the rockets so that they did not work. Instead, he suggested another weapon that he had heard was in the IRA's arsenal, a Boys that had been stolen from the Irish Army some years previous. This weapon was located, along with a handful of rounds. However, it was in poor shape, needing work to get it into some sort of firing order. Even when this was achieved, the gun had no magazine or extractor. This meant that each bullet had to be loaded by hand and then removed with the use of a screwdriver. Still, it is what the small team had, and on 10th of September 1965, they had their target in their sights. The HMS Brave Borderer. This vessel was the first of two motor torpedo boats that were the last of this type built for the Royal Navy. She was also one of the first vessels built with gas turbine engines. Capable of 52 knots, she was the fastest naval vessel afloat, her engineering world class. The Brave class carried a weapons fit of torpedoes, 40mm Bofors guns, and machine guns. With this armament and her blistering speed, she was a formidable attack craft. But her design emphasised agility over durability. Built with a mahogany skin over an aluminium frame, her speed was her armour. The Boys may have been outclassed against armoured vehicles, but against such a thin-skinned target, it would prove devastating. The IRA team had tried to attack the ship when she was anchored in Waterford Harbour, but the presence of civilians had deterred them. They then determined to attack the boat as it departed the port and sailed downriver to the sea. As the Borderer moved alongside their position, the team threw off the branches they had camouflaged themselves with and fired. Beale was hoping on not causing casualties. As he described in a later interview, the point was political, and though killing or injury of British sailors was a risk, it was not the intent. He therefore aimed the old boys above the waterline and towards the rear of the craft. The first shot blew a large hole in the side of the vessel. As Beale later recollected, the reaction from the Borderer was immediate. The alarm sounded and the crew scrambled to action stations. The follow-up second round blew another large hole through the side. The vessel laid on full power and started to charge for the open sea and out of the ambush zone. Beale recalls the nose lifting clean out of the water as his team struggled to load the third round. But this misfired. As Beale explains himself,
and we dud. Got her out, and by now the boat was going so fast she had gotten away from us, and she was going down the harbour, and she was up in the sky nearly, only the back of her in the water with the propellers, and she roaring down. Oh my God, she could move. I'd say she was the fastest warship now. And we just grabbed the gun and rammed in the last round we had, and all we could see was the turn in the river was the back of the boat. That's all you could see. I just took the chance, and they hadn't fired, and they didn't fire, which still often puzzles me, which I'm grateful for, by the way. And the last round, I had no option but to fire it from the shoulder. One of them was going to definitely break me back, and got up on the high embankment and aimed after her and dug in better with it. Dunk! And it blew me back off the bank all right. But luckily I wasn't hurt. But with that, with the sound of the gun firing, there was an unmerciful explosion out of the battle, out of the brave borderer, and a cloud of smoke went up. And you could hear, I'm a bit of a mechanical engineer myself. I've worked in mechanical engineering, and I know when you hear metal breaking like a car engine or some, the clanging of grating and breaking metal, unbelievable sound from this lovely silent boat up the den, like with a whoosh. She was stood there, now the sirens roaring, and her prow was up in the sky, kind of, she was going so fast, they were lifting. All of a sudden, she just plunged, and there was a big spray of water went up. The power was gone, and a big cloud of smoke, and a terrible noise. Oh God, says Ned Kelly, we've sunk her.
In fact they hadn't, and the brave borderer was able to make her way out to sea. She took no casualties in the attack. The British authorities said the damage was minor, but she had to return to the builders for repairs that took some months. And so came the swan song of the boy's anti-tank rifle. It seemed to have ended its career with more of a bang than it began with. And as for Beale and his team, they were arrested by the Irish police for their actions, but Beale managed to escape from Limerick prison in an escapade like something from a movie, by cutting through his cell window bars with a smuggled hacksaw blade and climbing down on a rope made of knotted bedsheets. But that's another story. That wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are interested in military history and affairs, feel free to check out my website, militarymatters.online. I'll put a link in the description. Also, have a look at some of the other videos I've produced. You may find something else of interest. Check out some of the links coming up.